No warning here. Yes.
All right, everyone ready? Okay, good afternoon. I first want to thank all of the state employees that have been working to prepare for this winter event, and certainly want to thank you for the work that you're going to have to do around the clock to keep our state safe and warm. So a big shout out to all of those state employees that have been working, whether you're in law enforcement and DOTD, all of the various agencies that touch the services that our citizens are going to need. As we look ahead to this upcoming weather event, I want to make sure that one thing is clear. The safety of every Louisianan is a top priority. This can be a very, very dangerous event. We're going to bring Jay up here in just a minute. But certainly cold, wet weather is a very dangerous event. About a year ago, we had a historic snowstorm. I will tell you that I would rather have a snowstorm than an ice storm. And I'm going to go through some of the reasons how we've prepared for that ice storm and why I'd rather have a snowstorm than an ice storm. I just signed a few minutes ago a state of emergency that we'll send out to the press following this press conference. This state of emergency allows for direct state assistance to support operational measures at the parish level to help protect life, safety, and the welfare of our citizens. Additionally, this declaration allows the state to request a waiver for commercial motor carriers and drivers assisting with emergencies to ensure that fuel deliveries are delivered quickly to Louisiana to prevent shortages. We understand that we may have started to see some shortages in North Louisiana, so we wanted to make sure that that waiver went out right away and we could get gas into the gas stations and people could fill up their cars or their gas cans or whatever amount of fuel that they need in preparation for this event. With that being said, so that's something we just did in ways that we should see some relief right away. With that being said, we are preparing for significant impacts across the state, starting as early as Friday in our northwestern parishes. This is going to be bitterly cold Arctic air that unfortunately is going to linger around well into next week. Jay is going to go into that. I want to tell you that it's been one of the biggest benefits we've had here at GOSEP, having a meteorologist on staff, and of course he's great, to be able to advise us. Many of the southern parishes are going to be affected as well. So really this weather event is going to affect everyone from the coast all the way up north, but especially central and north Louisiana. An ice storm is going to create power outages, especially if we get the amount of ice that Jay is going to go over. You are going to see power outages. The best I can remember last year, we didn't have many, if any, power outages due to a snowstorm. Ice accumulates on trees, it accumulates on the lines, and then it causes them to fail. The good news is the Public Service Commission has already ensured that our utilities have placed crews in place that will work around the clock based upon the weather at that time and coordinate closely with our other agencies to restore the services to those utilities as quickly as possible. But again, if you live in the very rural parts of the state and your electricity goes out and it's because of downed trees and power lines, it could be a while before you get power restored. So I urge everyone listening and watching to begin to plan ahead. You want to check on your neighbors, especially if you have elderly neighbors who may need help in preparing as well. Our state emergency operations center is now fully activated. General Mahfouz has been preparing for a couple of days now with his staff. GOSEP is coordinating with local officials. They've been having round-the-clock meetings, making sure that our contingency plans are in place and making sure that the supplies that we need are available. Right now, GOSEP has 30 employees activated 24/7. DOTD has salt in hand, more than 10 million pounds. Brine on hand, approximately 200,000 gallons. We've got 51 road graders, 75 brine sprayers, 472 salt spreaders, and 10 brine makers, so we can make brine around the clock. Colonel Hodges and his staff have prepared 72 troopers that are on standby to supplement shifts in North Louisiana. The Louisiana National Guard has 118 generators available, 24 water haul assets, of course, 302 high water vehicles, because again, when you start getting in ice and there may be some snow, and certainly over debris, those high water vehicles can come in handy. We've got over 140,000 meals ready to eat and over 600,000 bottles of water. DCSF, the Child Protection Hotline, will remain fully operational. That's one of the great things that we were able to do through our Doge effort. We've really added some additional staff to DCSF. The leadership and essential staff for DCSF will be in place 24/7. The state fire marshal, who you hear from Brian in just a minute, we have distributed over 27,000 smoke alarms across the state. That is really important. He'll go through some safety measures that you should adhere to as well. LDH, our Secretary, Bruce Greenstein, is here as well. 8 warming centers are currently open. 29 warming centers are pending opening. And as I said earlier, the Public Service Commission has made sure we've got 5,000 vegetation and linemen that will be standing by, ready to go. We've also, I want to thank President Trump and certainly Secretary Kristi Noem and FEMA's Region 6. They have already helped us pre-position some FEMA assets, which would include 30 additional generators, 400,000 liters of water, and 250,000 additional meals ready to eat. Remember the 4 P's: people, pets, plants, and pipes. It's real easy. 4 P's: people, pets, plants, and pipes. Check on your neighbors. Protect your property. Make sure that you have good necessities like food, adequate water, medication, and heat. Understand that you may go sometime, especially up in North Louisiana, without electricity. When the fire marshal comes up, make sure you adhere to the things that he's going to lay out, because again, we don't want this event to turn into a disaster for anyone. Stay off the roads. I cannot say this enough. Stay off the roads. Once you have checked on your plants, your pipes, your people, and your pets, get comfortable, cook a gumbo. I mean, look, the only person I wouldn't want to be is a chicken in the state right now, because I'm sure the grocery stores are selling out on chickens. We have plenty of chicken and sausage gumbo, but please get in your homes, get warm, get safe, and stay there. Even after the event passes, the cold air is going to stay, which means that any ice accumulation will be on the roads. Ice on the road is not only dangerous, it is deadly. And if you get on the roads and then you get in an accident, you're endangering our first responders already. So please, again, I beg you, stay off the road. Find a nice book and some great meals. Enjoy the time with the family. Make sure that your vehicle is winter ready. Make sure there's plenty of glycol in your radiators, and that you can start it when the event is over. You should, if you want to check on road closures, you can do it via 511la.org or by just dialing 511. We've got some great apps. Don't forget to get a game plan.app as well for up-to-date information on Louisiana's emergency management efforts. You can find everything on there. You've heard it over the last 2 years. I've been up here. Get a game plan. It's a great app. It will give you good information on 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 the updates you would need to keep yourself safe. We all know that Louisianans are resilient. We all know that we've been through this before, but again, an ice event is a very, very serious and different event than what we saw last year. Again, I would urge you, once the event starts, do not go outside. Do not get on the road. After after the event passes, the days of cold air will continue to keep that ice on the road. So again, make sure you stay tuned with your local news outlets on the radio or to get a game plan app to find out when those roads become safe again. I beg you, please take this serious. We want you to stay informed. We want you to stay prepared. And again, I can't say it enough. We want you, what do we want them to do, Piper? We want them to stay off the roads, right?
Yes, sir.
That's right. Okay. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to bring our state meteorologist, Jay Grimes, up, and so he can walk you through what the areas that are going to be impacted the most, and then kind of walk you through what each of those areas will experience. Jay.
Thank you, Governor, and thanks for those kind words. So obviously, this is going to be a major event for North Louisiana. In fact, for our residents in the northern part of the state, they may remember the February 2021 winter event across that portion of Louisiana. This is going to be something of equivalence. And just to highlight some of the points that the governor was making, in that event, we had a handful of fatalities related to the weather. So it is imperative that you follow the guidance that you hear. You'll notice with the maps there that we're looking at the potential for icing across northern and central Louisiana. As the governor pointed out, we do have a little bit of good news here in the sense that the ice line, in terms of the weather guidance, has retreated a little bit northward. So right now it looks like folks near and along the I-10, I-12 corridor and maybe US 190 will avoid any significant icing concerns. So here's an example of the what we might call the most likely scenario, and you can see icing amounts that could be as much as half an inch or more along and near the I-20 corridor. Icing of that magnitude is clearly going to create some significant problems. By the way, I want to thank the National Weather Service office in Slidell for doing the heavy lifting here and preparing some of these slides for me. Now, worst case scenario would be to bring that significant icing as far south as Alexandria. But that's a real low-end probability. Were that to occur, there's a very low-end probability that some of that ice could sneak as far south as the I-10 corridor in southwest Louisiana. But I don't see that happening, especially since the guidance has been sort of steadily over the last 24 hours retreating that ice line. But it still says the northern half of the state will be impacted. Now, keep in mind, the cold stuff will be following the rain. So it falls as rainfall, but freezes on contact as the bitter Arctic air rolls into the state behind the rain showers on Friday. Saturday is going to be a statewide mess, whether it's freezing or not, when the rain begins to fall. The problem in North Louisiana is that ultimately some of that rain will turn to snow. So we could see an inch or more of snow on top of the ice. That's going to be a bit misleading for some people if they're unaware of the fact that we've got a layer of ice below that snowpack. That snowpack is also going to keep the ice in place even longer. Worst case scenario with snow, we could see a couple of inches of snow in the northern part of the state. Again, the probability of a few inches is low, but it is not zero. Snow is more than likely going to remain north of Alexandria, but it's going to complicate issues in the northern part of the state where we get the snow on top of the ice. Then we've got issues with freezing temperatures, where temperatures in the northern part of the state could drop as into and below freezing upwards of 70 or more consecutive hours. We're talking about 3 days in northern Louisiana where the temperature will be at or below freezing. So there's no chance of really melting any of that ice and snow that develops. And 3 days takes us into the early part of next week. The real issue here is largely dependent upon where that front is set up as we work our way through the weekend. If the front moves a little bit more quickly, then the ice line gets a little farther to the south. But I really do believe that the ice threat will be mainly from the central parishes northward. I think the southern parishes will dodge that. But the cold air is going to get to everybody. In North Louisiana, you see here, look at that. We're not only talking about 70 plus hours of freezing temperatures, but lows that could get down to near 10 degrees on multiple nights in the northern parishes. We're talking about wind chills that could get very close to zero. That's why the governor pointed out, stay indoors. Hunters, this is not the time to be going out because this is just going to be bitterly cold air, coldest of the winter, more than likely. And notice, even down into the teens across the central parishes. And while the southern parishes may not get quite that cold, we're still looking at hard freezes across most of the southern parishes as we get into Monday and Tuesday. So it's a triple whammy. Ice for the northern parishes, followed by snow, followed by that bitter cold Arctic air. This is why we encourage folks to stay indoors and to prepare for power outages that could last for several days. In that February 2021 event, some folks in North Louisiana were without power for almost 2 weeks. So that gives you a sense of what this could be like. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jay. As Jay mentioned, DOTD has really started preparing for an extreme event. We have initiated all pre-storm preparations, including the application of de-icing materials, as well as pre-treating bridges, overpasses, and elevated roadways across the state's most impacted areas. DOTD crews have already begun working 24-hour shifts to conduct these efforts. As the governor mentioned, we have a significant inventory of supplies. As he mentioned, DOTD has stockpiled more than 10 million pounds of salt and 200,000 gallons of brine to pre-treat and de-ice bridges, the most on-hand inventory in the state's history. We also have capabilities statewide to make additional brine as needed. DOTD is also positioning all salt reserves to key staging areas throughout the state in order to efficiently supply its crews and staff in areas that are forecasted to get hit the hardest. DOTD will continue staging salt and brine for application along with equipment, resources, and will remain on standby for all emergency response needs. DOTD has expanded its efforts and engaged contract services to require additional emergency support as needed, and DOTD is currently renting additional equipment ahead of the storm in an effort to assist with these activities. DOTD crews will work hard to keep all state routes open. However, weather conditions may prohibit this. If these conditions do occur, particularly in North Louisiana, DOTD's primary objective will be maintaining our priority routes, which are comprised of state and federal highways and interstates. Other non-priority routes will be kept open as weather conditions permit, but they have a higher likelihood of closure due to dangerous weather conditions. The DOTD priority routes will be found on the MyDOT website. Please note, as Jay Grimes mentioned, even the priority routes could be closed at some point if we receive prolonged and extreme weather conditions. In addition to these operations, DOTD's Traffic Management Center is activating 24-hour shifts to staff the Emergency Operations Center, and DOTD's Motorist Assistance Patrol will also activate 24-hour shifts throughout the state's coverage areas. The department is staying in close contact with GOSEP and the National Weather Service about weather conditions and how they may impact the state's roads and bridges across the state. Drivers should avoid being on the roadway, as the governor mentioned, especially in hazardous conditions where travel is not absolutely necessary. If travel is absolutely necessary, please look out for our crews as well as any emergency support crews across the state. Remember that it's unlawful and unsafe to drive around a road closure barricade for any reason. DOTD will continue its communication and up-to-date information. As the governor mentioned, please go to our website at 511la.org. Travelers can find information regarding road closures by downloading that app or going to that website. In addition to that, we have our My DOT website as well as email update, and motorists can receive updated information on projects, lane closures, and road closures, and other activities across the state. And finally, you can follow DOTD social media for all updates and road closures and additional information. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Thank you.
Good afternoon. So I want to give just a few safety tips on heater safety. So in 2025, we had one of the busiest years with fire-related fatalities in the last 2 decades. We had 88 fire-related fatalities, and we've already had 10 this year, and we only into the early part of January. So if you're going to use a space heater at your home, you want to make sure it's away from all the combustibles in the room, the blankets, the spreads, the sofas, and all of those things that may catch on fire because of those heaters. You want to also make sure when you go to bed at night, you turn those off and you cover up with several blankets to make sure that you stay warm. But the smoke alarm project that we did in 2025, we did it for a reason. Those 27,000 alarms we put out still does not put a smoke alarm in every home in the state of Louisiana. It's unheard of that we've had that many fatalities. So we want to keep pushing that message forward and making sure that you know that you can get a free smoke alarm from your local fire department anytime you need that smoke alarm. We've also started today distributing carbon monoxide signs to all the areas in the northern part of the state, just in case you need a generator at your home, to make sure that you protect yourself and you have a smoke alarm, a carbon monoxide detector as well in your home. Fireplaces, make sure you turn those off at night or put those flames out before you go to bed at night to make sure that those things don't catch on fire as well. Never use your oven or your stove to heat your home. These things all cause fires in the home. Make sure tonight before you go to bed, you push that test button on your smoke alarm to make sure that smoke alarm is working. Thank you so much, Governor.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to echo a few of the things we've already heard, but as the governor said, we're a resilient state, and fortunately or unfortunately, we've learned how to deal with storms. Typically, we're thinking of hurricanes, but we do have experience on the utility restoration side with winter storms. I know Jay mentioned the 21 storm, and that could be a corollary. Hopefully, it doesn't get that bad, but just to put that in context, we had 2 events in 21 a few days apart. Each one, we topped out about 125,000 in outages. So 250,000 people. It doesn't make the top 20 with hurricanes, but you're more localized, so you have more time to restore. Looking back, it looked like we were averaging about 1/2 inch of ice. So I think, Jay, that's a good number to look at. That's that threshold. You know, ice builds up on power lines. It builds up on trees. It takes lines down. So be patient if you do have an outage. We always deal with issues with getting power restored. With access, it's a little bit different when the roads are iced over. Our utilities are getting specialized equipment that can help them get into those areas. The governor mentioned the 5,000 people that are staged right now. That is a high number. We would like it to be higher. Unfortunately, our neighboring states who would normally lend us access are dealing with the same situation. So until those states know they're free to release people, we'll be at that number. Fortunately, we do have utilities that have resources in the southern of the state, Energy and Clico in particular, that may not be affected. So they'll be able to move those assets into the areas, assuming we have outages, similar with the co-ops. Be patient. Hopefully we won't have those long durations, but there will likely be outages because of the ice. As I said, stay off the roads, treat any line that's down as live, particularly with trees wrapped up in lines. Don't go and try to remove those yourselves. Call your power company. Make sure they clear it before you try to do anything, and stay warm.
Okay, so again, as you heard from each one of our agencies and from Jay, this is a very dangerous event, especially for folks in North and Central Louisiana. It's dangerous because you could have bitter cold and no electricity. So just think about how you prepare. I really do believe if you just take some time, think about it, take care of your neighbors, take care of your pipes, take care of making sure that if you got enough water, enough blankets, and understand that you could go for some time without electricity, which is different than a snowstorm, but it really is more like the ice storm of 21. And we're all, and again, please stay off of the roads. There's no sense in going look at a window wonderland because it'll end up in a disaster on an icy road. So with that, we'll take any questions that the press may have.
And let's stay on topic.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a few questions, but I'll start with this. I'm wondering if perhaps either you or if Mr. Grimes could talk more about the timing of when the impacts are going to be felt across the state, maybe starting in Shreveport and then.
So the way it looks right now, the rain and the coldest of the air, where we start to see freezing problems in Northwest Louisiana, will begin Friday night. And then everything will advance to the east and southeast, rolling through Saturday into Sunday. So there's sort of the basic timeline. Once we get to freezing Saturday in North Louisiana, they're there through the weekend and into the early part of next week. So, and that's really the problem for those folks, is that the cold air, the bitterly cold Arctic air mass, is going to catch up to the rain in North Louisiana. The thinking right now is that the cold air doesn't get down here in South Louisiana until most of the rain has come to an end. That's why the freeze line remains north of the capital city and probably north of 190.
Okay. And when does the cold air start to reach the furthest north and further the northwestern part of the state?
So it'll start arriving even Friday night.
The cold air.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But and again, I think I would reemphasize that cold air starts Friday night in North Louisiana, and the system moves through the weekend. But temperatures throughout the state of Louisiana will be below freezing well into the early part of next week.
Yeah, the coldest of the air doesn't arrive until the early part of next week. So we want people to be aware of the fact that as cold as it's going to be this weekend, it'll get even colder for Monday and Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a great question. Yeah. Yes, Mike.
With the power outages that we're expecting, do we have kind of like a best case and a worst case scenario on how long it will take to restore power in an ice situation?
I think the best I can do is look at what happened in 21, and I would say the bulk of the customers were restored in 2 days. It's just getting access to them. I mean, it's a lot of very localized distribution damage. We did have some, I know Jay said 2 weeks. I think that was the very small percentage, maybe 1,000 or so, but the bulk were restored within 4 days. So, I mean, we're probably a little bit less than a Category 1 hurricane, which we typically take as a week, but it's going to depend on access and the roads.
And could you say your name and title?
Brandon Fry, I'm Secretary with the Public Service Commission.
Okay.
I know you guys are advising people to stay off the roadway during this winter weather event, but for those who do have to commute somewhere, what would be the advice? What would you advise them to do if they do have to commute somewhere? In this
Well, I certainly would limit any commute. Look, getting on ice is dangerous, and especially if you're in North and Central Louisiana, and if we do end up with a snow event after the rain event, the problem with that is people are like, oh, well, it's just snow. I can just kind of drive through an inch of snow. But if there's ice underneath there, that is extremely dangerous. So if you do have to get on the roads, which I would really urge you not to do, but if you do, you're going to have to drive extremely slow, extremely slow.
Anyone else? Okay, one
What?
more.
One more?
Excuse me. Can you talk about where the 8 warming centers that are currently open are located and where the other warming centers are going to be?
Bruce?
Hey, I'm Bruce Greenstein. I'm the Secretary of Health. Want to be clear on a couple things. The warming centers are not shelters. They're not overnight centers, and they're run by the parish and city governments. So today, there are 8 ready to go. As mentioned, there's 29 planned. They're updated on an hourly basis. We're submitting all of our updates to Get a Game Plan. Even if you go to the LDH website, you have the link to go to Get a Game Plan. So I'd encourage you throughout this event to continue to go and get updates to see in your community where there are. There are more that are opening potentially beyond the 29. Today we're seeing Red Cross and libraries opened up. So I would say tune in.
Okay, again, we want everyone to have a very safe and warm weekend in your home, not traveling on the roadways. Please stay tuned for updates with your local news and weather centers. Make sure, again, I would urge you to download the Get a Game Plan app where you can get all of that information, including the 511 road information as well. We'll be pushing out information as the event unfolds, and we want everyone to stay safe. Thank you.